personal statement to the House. At the 2017 election, I promised my wife and children that it would be my last. This is a pledge that I intend to keep. If the House votes tonight for an early general election, my tenure as Speaker and MP will end when this Parliament ends. If the House does not so vote, I have concluded that the least disruptive and most democratic course of action would be for me to stand down at the close of business on Thursday, October the 31st. Least disruptive because that date will fall shortly after the votes on the Queen's speech expected on 21st and 22nd October. The week or so after that may be quite lively, and it would be best to have an experienced figure in the chair for that short period. Most democratic because it will mean that a ballot is held when all members have some knowledge of the candidates. This is far preferable to a contest at the beginning of a parliament when new MPs will not be similarly informed and may find themselves vulnerable to undue institutional influence. Want anyone to be whipped senseless, would we? No. Throughout my time as Speaker, I have sought to increase the relative authority of this legislature, for which I will make absolutely no apology to anyone, anywhere, at any time. To deploy a perhaps dangerous phrase, I have also sought to be the backbencher's backstop. I could not do so without the support of a small but superb team in Speaker's House, the wider House staff, my Buckingham constituents, and above all, my wife Sally and our 3 children, Oliver, Freddie, and Jemima. From the bottom of my heart, I thank them all profusely. I could also not have served without the repeated support of this House and its members, past and present. This is a wonderful place, filled overwhelmingly by people who are motivated by their notion of the national interest, by their perception of the public good, and by their duty, not as delegates, but as representatives to do what they believe is right for our country. We degrade this Parliament at our peril. I have served as a Member of Parliament for 22 years and for the last 10 as Speaker. This has been, let me put it explicitly, the greatest privilege and honour of my professional life, for which I will be eternally grateful. I wish my successor in the chair the very best fortune in standing up for the rights of honourable and right honourable members individually, and for Parliament institutionally as the Speaker of the House of Commons. Thank you. Colleagues, you really are a very, very, very generous bunch of people indeed. And thank you on both sides of the House for the expressions of support, which I richly appreciate. I love this place, you love this place, and we look forward to the future with interest, anticipation, and enthusiasm. Point of order, the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to put on record my thanks to you as being a superb Speaker of this House. My thanks to you as a colleague in Parliament, and my thanks to your family for the way in which they've supported you through often very difficult times when many of the media have been very unfair on you. And your two sons are getting good at football. I did some kicks with them in the Speaker's Court the other day. I was very impressed, actually. They're coming on well. And I know you support the same club as me. But, Mr. Speaker, in your role as Speaker, you've totally changed the way in which the job has been done. You've reached out to people across the whole country. You've visited schools, you've visited factories, you've visited offices, you've talked to people about the role of Parliament and democracy. And I've never forgotten you coming to City Islington College in my constituency and spending the morning with me talking to a group of students, all of whom had learning difficulties, and we discussed with them the roles of democracy and Parliament. And you've taken absolutely on board the words of Speaker Lenthal, that you're there to be guided and act on behalf of our Parliament. This Parliament is the stronger for your being Speaker. Our democracy is the stronger for your being the Speaker. And whatever you do when you finally step down from Parliament, you do so with the thanks of a very large number of people. And as one that has made the role of Speaker in the House more powerful, not less powerful, I welcome that. And as somebody who aspires to hold executive office. I like the idea of a powerful Parliament holding the executive to account. It's something I've spent the last 35 years doing myself. So, Mr. Speaker, enjoy the last short period in your office, but it's going to be one of the most dramatic there has been. And I think your choice of timing and date is incomparable and will be recorded in the history books of parliamentary democracy. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Labour Party, I thank you for your work in promoting democracy and this House. Thank you.
Thank you. I just say to the Right Honourable Gentleman, the Leader of the Opposition, he's very much more experienced and senior than I, but I think that as backbenchers in our respective parties, we did have quite a lot in common. Certainly speaking for myself as a backbencher and frequently as an opposition frontbencher, I found that I had a relationship with my whips characterised by trust and understanding. I didn't trust them and they didn't understand me. And point of order, the Minister for the Cabinet Office and the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, Mr. Michael Gove.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to, perhaps for the first time, associate myself wholeheartedly with the comments of the Leader of the Opposition. Since you entered the House of Commons in 1997, it's been clear to everyone who has seen you work as a diligent constituency MP, as an effective backbencher, and also as a tenacious frontbencher in your time, that you love this House of Commons, you love our democracy, and your commitment to your principles and to your constituents is unwavering and an example to others. It is the case that this evening I shall vote with many of my colleagues for an early general election. I hope you won't take that personally, Mr. Speaker, because I have no wish to prematurely truncate your time in the chair. Because it is the case, however controversial the role of a backstop may be in other areas, your role as the backbencher's backstop has certainly been one that's been appreciated by individuals across this House. I spent much, though not all, of the last 10 years as a member of the executive, but I have also been a backbencher in this House, and I have personally appreciated the way in which you have always sought to ensure that the executive answers for its actions. And I think that history will record the way in which you have used the urgent question procedure and other procedures to hold the executive to account, have restored life and vigour to Parliament, and in so doing, you have been in the very best tradition of speakers. Now, it is the case, as a member of the executive, that from time to time, those of us on this side of the House might have bridled or chastened some of the judgments that you've made. But I have never been in any doubt, Mr. Speaker, that you have operated on the basis that the executive must be answerable to this House in the same way as this House is answerable to the people. You have done everything in your power in order to ensure not just the continued, but the underlined relevance of this place. Your love of democracy is transparent in everything that you say and do, and in such, I want to, on behalf of myself as an individual, and on behalf of the Conservative Party, to say thank you. And as a fellow parent of pupils at a distinguished West London Comprehensive, can I also say how important it is that discipline is maintained in this House, and your energetic efforts to do so are appreciated even by those of us who may not always be the best behaved in class.
Well, I thank the Right Honourable Gentleman. That was characteristically generous and gracious of him. At the risk of inflicting some damage upon his otherwise flourishing political career, I have on more than one occasion paid public tribute to the quality of the Right Honourable Gentleman. One of the reasons why he doesn't complain about urgent questions being granted, to which he has at short notice to answer, is that the fact is that the Right Honourable Gentleman is quick enough, bright enough, sharp enough, fair-minded enough, articulate enough and dexterous enough to be able to cope with whatever is thrown at him. I don't want this to become a mutual admiration society, because I'm not sure whether it would be more damaging to him or to me, but I thank him for what he said, for the way in which he said it, and for the spirit that his remarks embody. Yes, of course. Point of order, Mr. Hilary Benn.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Speaker. I wouldn't for a minute... Yes.
No, I'm saving him up.
Oh, you're saving him up. Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I wouldn't seek for a minute to challenge your decision, not least because you'd rule me out of order, but I have to say that I regret it and respect it. And I say that for this reason, that when the history books come to be written, you will be described as one of the great reforming speakers of the House of Commons. And the reason is because you have indeed been the backbencher's friend and supporter, but in every decision you have made, you have put one consideration above everything else: your wish to enable the House of Commons to discuss matters and to express a view. And there have been occasions when some in the House have taken umbrage at decisions that you have reached, but you have stood by your beliefs and your principles, and there are many, many members of this House who are eternally grateful to you for having stood up for our rights, to enable us to debate and then to vote on something. The fact that the Speaker decides that something should be debated is not that the Speaker is saying the House should agree it is the Speaker saying that we should be able to cast our vote. And that is why we will regard you in that light for many, many years to come. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Point of order, my next-door neighbour and very loyal next-door neighbour and very brilliant next-door neighbour in constituency terms of over 20 years, Mr. David Liddington.
Mr. Speaker, could I, as an elector in the Buckingham constituency, not least, offer an expression of thanks to you for your work as a constituency member of Parliament over the last 22 years. Talking to neighbours and acquaintances in all parts of the Buckingham constituency over the years which you have represented it, I've been struck by the fact that men and women of very different political persuasions, and indeed those of no particular party affiliation, are united in their appreciation of the fact that you have never allowed your considerable duties as Speaker of the House detract from your responsibility to represent their interests in Buckingham and to respond to the concerns which they raise with you. And while colleagues in all parts of the House will speak about your record as Speaker, those of us in Buckinghamshire will know how you have continued to speak on and champion local interests and local issues. I know too that you will be missed amongst the somewhat eclectic team of honourable and right honourable members representing the county of Buckinghamshire. It is perhaps a good measure of the fact that in this place, despite frequent clashes and disagreements, we can still manage to get on. That those Buckinghamshire parliamentary meetings bring together not just you and I, but my right honourable friend, the member for Cheshire and Amersham, and both my right honourable friend, the member for Beaconsfield, and my honourable friend, the member for Wickham, in a spirit of harmony, at least on county matters. So I thank you for what you have done for us locally, and also, if I may, Mr. Speaker, as a former Leader of the House, for what you have done to communicate more to people, and particularly to school children and students around the country, about how this place works and the constitutional significance of Parliament in defending the liberties and debating the interests of the next generation.
Well, I thank the right honourable gentleman for what he said, and I just want to observe, and I think that others will bear testimony to this in the light of what he's just said, that the right honourable gentleman was frankly an outstanding leader of the House of Commons. He is one of the most cooperative and collaborative colleagues whom one could hope to meet. He gets things done, he's extremely personable, and I think it's fair to say that he works on the basis of periodic political difference, but continuing personal amiability. If others of us were able to model ourselves on the way in which he's gone about his work over the last 27 years as a Member of Parliament, we would probably be doing better. I thank him for what he's